Good morning, everyone. My name is Margareth Ndomondo, Uganda. I'm the head of health program at NEPAD agency. I would first of all like to convey my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this meeting, especially Victoria for inviting me to the presentation, but also Danny and Rachel for helping out with the technology. And I'm glad that I'm able to share with you the work that we are doing on the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative and the African Medicines Agency. So as a way of the outline of my presentation, I will take you through first the introduction to NEPAD agency, and also I'll explain to you the background and overview of the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative. And then, of course, I will take you through the African Medicines Agency, the operating model, the vision, mission, and objectives, but also explain to you the key actors, milestones, and opportunities for patients' engagement. Now, as I said, NEPAD basically stands for the New Partnership for Africa's Development, which is a socio-economic development program of the African Union, which was endorsed by the heads of state and government way back in 2001 as a mechanism to stimulate Africa's development by bridging the existing gaps on the continent with a view to address the socio-economic, political, and environmental factors undermining development, and especially in this regard, focusing on public health. The program was thereafter transformed into a development agency in 2010, where the AU Summit actually endorsed the NEPAD agency as a technical arm of the African Union to replace the then secretariat that was responsible for the NEPAD program. The core mandate of the NEPAD agency is to facilitate and coordinate the implementation of continental and regional priority programs and projects, to mobilize resources and partners in support of the implementation, to conduct and coordinate research and knowledge management, to monitor and evaluate the implementation of programs, and last but not least, to advocate on the African Union and NEPAD vision, mission, and core values. So these are really the core mandate for which NEPAD agency is operating. And I should mention here that we are implementing programs in various sectors, including agriculture, infrastructure, environment, natural resources, science, technology, education, and health. And actually, under the current dispensation, the health program is under the portfolio of science, technology, innovation, and industrialization. Now, in the area of health, and in its effort to address Africa's disease burden, the agency has contributed to the development of the first African health strategy, which was operational since 2007 to 2016, and of course, the subsequent review of the strategy last year which actually is going to take us all the way through 2017 to 2030. And basically, this is an overarching framework that provides guidance to the regional economic communities and the member states of the African Union in advancing the public health agenda. Now, the agency is responsible for providing technical assistance to the AU member states, communities, African Union Commission, Pan-African Parliament, in facilitating implementation of the priority health projects and programs at national, regional, and continental levels. And we do this by ensuring that we consolidate all the efforts in the areas of health and pharmaceuticals in line with the African Union and global policy frameworks and strategies. And these include, among others, the Abuja Declaration on HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and other related infectious diseases, which was endorsed in 2001. The Africa Health Strategy, as I mentioned, and the Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Plan for Africa Business Plan, which was endorsed in 2012. The Catalytic Framework to End AIDS, TB, and Eliminate Malaria in Africa by 2030, which was endorsed last year. And of course, Agenda 2063, which an overarching framework that guides implementation, continental implementation on all the sectors in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, which were also endorsed last year and extending throughout 2030. So basically, this is a framework in which we operate, aligning to the continental policy frameworks, but at the same time ensuring that we address the global policy frameworks in implementing programs on health. And as you may all know, that Africa is home to 15% of the world population, but at the same time, we carry 25% of the global disease burden. And so you can imagine how difficult it is for us to be able to attain the socioeconomic agenda without really having to address the issue of increased disease burden that is affecting Africa. And one of the areas that actually has been considered necessary in addressing this burden affecting Africa is the issue of access to quality, safe, and efficacious medicines, which, if properly managed, will contribute to reduce the disease burden. And we think that this can be done by ensuring that we invest in promoting local pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity, but also we invest in strengthening the weak medicines regulatory system. So this is where the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative stems from. But also, when we're looking at this initiative, we should also take into account that in Africa, we have 55 African Union member states with a population of 1.13 billion people. And we have 8 African Union recognized regional economic communities and 5 geographic regions. So whatever we do, whenever we talk about social development agenda for the continent, this is the landscape that we are operating in. And as I mentioned before, that the aspiration for Agenda 2063 is to have a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. That is aspiration number 1. And goal number 1 of Agenda 2063 advocates for a high standard of living, quality of life, and well-being for all citizens. But also, goal number 3 focuses on healthy and well-nourished citizens. These are our guiding, principles that we align when it comes to implementing health programs at NEPAD agency. And these aspirations and goals are also in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 3, which talks about good health and well-being. And of course, it has a target on achieving access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable essential medicines and vaccines for all. So based on this background, then in 2005, the African Union Assembly made a decision that there was a need to develop the pharmaceutical manufacturing plan for Africa within the NEPAD framework as a framework for increasing access to medical products and technologies, to optimize the African market for new medical products and technologies. But also critically, it was recognized that for that to happen, we needed to ensure that we have an enabling regulatory environment for which the pharmaceutical industry will be able to flourish. And this is the genesis of the African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative. So I've talked about the decisions in 2007, 2012, and 2015, basically trying to support the PMPA framework in ensuring that we have appropriate strategic objectives and plans that would be able to facilitate the realization of the goals for which the PMPA framework was endorsed. And so when we're looking at the aspect of creating enabling regulatory environment in Africa, one of the key elements that we need to understand is the limited regulatory capacity of the continent. And the statistics show that 4% of countries globally have moderately developed regulatory capacity, 4% of which actually are from Africa. And that 3% of countries have regulatory capacity to carry out more functions, but with different degrees of capacity. And that 24% of the countries have basic regulatory capacity to carry out minimum functions. And when I talk of minimum functions, or rather, when I talk of regulatory functions, basically we're talking about, the functions to register, put products in the market, functions to be able to conduct surveillance of the safety of medicines on the market, functions such as regulatory inspections, licensing of manufacturing activities, importation, distribution, and all those, aspects that are related to pharmaceutical sector sort of development. And so 24% of those countries have basic regulatory capacity to carry out minimum functions, while 39% have limited capacity to implement all the regulatory functions. This is based on the WHO report of 2004. But I think I should also mention here that a lot is happening in trying to address these challenges, and that's the reason why this African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative was actually conceived. But at the moment, I think it's also important to realize the fact that most of the countries in Africa are faced with a huge challenge of wide circulation of substandard and counterfeit medicines, with subsequent drug resistance and reported deaths in some of the countries on the continent. And so this is a public health issue that needs to be addressed by all stakeholders, including governments, the industry, non-government organizations, patient organizations, development agencies. Together, we need to put our efforts in order to be able to address this. Now, what we did as NEPAD agency, in 2009, we constituted a consortium of partners, including the African Union Commission, Pan-African Parliament, World Health Organization, Gates Foundation, DFID, NEPFA, US government, Gavi, the World Bank, and others that have come over time to create a partnership that would advance the African medicines regulatory harmonization agenda on the continent. So through this partnership, we were able to first convene all the African national medicines regulatory agencies of the continent. We had like 47 countries participated in the first consultation meeting in 2009, but also we brought in the regional economic communities and health organizations to sit together and discuss the regulatory challenges that most of the countries in Africa are facing. And the agreement in that meeting was that much as we understand the regulatory challenges that countries are facing, including the having weak legal frameworks or outdated laws, to having limited financial resources, lack of human resources, lack of infrastructure for regulation, lack of expertise to actually do the work, we realized that the problems were too many that we couldn't address all of them at once. And so we decided to go and use a stepwise approach of improving the fragmented regulatory system by starting with harmonizing registration requirements, changing from country-focused approach to a collaborative, regional, and simplified approach. And basically, our target was to use the regional economic community as an appropriate and suitable platform for bringing countries together, because countries have already, gotten into agreement through trade treaties, economic agreements, and we thought that is a very good political structure to use as a way of bringing countries together to advance the regulatory harmonization agenda. And so what we agreed was to start by harmonizing and streamlining technical requirements for product registration, which would then lead to increased and timely product access by patients, but also create a platform for building African regulatory capacity region by region. And our pathway that we had agreed was that, first and foremost, through the regional regulatory platform, then we should harmonize the standards, the technical requirements, the guidelines. We should also facilitate joint and regional dossier assessment and GMP inspection, meaning inspection of manufacturing sites. We should also encourage work sharing among countries and pooling of resources, given the limitation if countries are to work individually, that through this regional platform, then countries will be able to work, share, and even share information that will assist them in making their national decisions. Of course, also streamlining decision-making processes. And the expected outcome was that it would have reduced timelines for registration, beginning with generic medicines and extending slowly to other product categories such as new chemical entities, vaccines, diagnostics, but also extending to other regulatory functions over time. And that meant we would have to expand to cover aspects such as clinical trials, safety surveillance, and so forth. But also, the idea was to move from one region and extend to other regional economic communities. So we started with the East African Community in 2012, which has 5 countries, Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, Burundi, and Rwanda. And they came together and agreed on harmonized standards and started doing some joint work and getting countries to pair and be able to work together. And by virtue of them coming together, we have seen a tremendous improvement in terms of capacity. First and foremost, of course, the issue around trust that has been built, among the participating countries, the expertise working together, and that has also helped, in shaping the decision-making process, because out of the joint work that is done regionally, then countries are able to use that, information as a basis for making their national decision. And that has also allowed, has facilitated actually reduction of registration time. So that's what we see happening in the East African Community. But I must also report to you that after the initial launch of the project in East African Community in 2012, we've seen progressive sort of interest by other regional economic communities that have also launched the programs, including the West African Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, through its health agency, West Africa Health Organization, in collaboration with the West Africa Monetary and Economic Union, YM. Together, they launched a program in February 2015, covering 15 countries in the West Africa region, and we are seeing a lot of progress in terms of really harmonizing registration requirements and getting the countries to work together. Equally, we have seen progress and a launch of the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, of the PAM in July 2015, with subsequent work done through the Zazibona scheme. Zazibona stands for Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia. The 4 countries actually, they had initiated the process because they were willing to work together. And so through that process, we have slowly seen other countries joining force and, facilitating joint reviews and approving products through the collaborative procedure. We've seen, for example, last year, DRC is joined in, and also the Republic of South Africa has also joined in this Zazibona scheme, and hopefully all the rest of the countries in the SADC region, the 15 countries, all join force and be able to use the Zazibona approach as a way of working together in the region. We've also started implementing the project in it for International Intergovernmental Authority for Development, which covers the Horn of Africa. It has 8 countries. And already in this region, we have Kenya and Uganda that also belongs to the East African Community. And we are seeing very good progress in terms of bringing the countries together and sharing information and advancing the regulatory agenda. Equally, we had the launch of the steering committee in Central Africa last year in November, where the countries are now in the process of looking into how best they can do joint review of products and be able to facilitate approval through the regional partners. So Basically, we have about more than 85 countries being covered under the AMRH initiative across the continent. And now we're actually at the stage where the East African community is now expanding the scope to cover pharmacovigilance, which is a safety surveillance program as we had initially planned. But also, we through the African vaccines regulatory firm, we've also seen advancement in building capacity on clinical trial oversight and ethics oversight by national agencies and ethics committee. And now we are at the stage of aligning the AVRF with the MRH on clinical trial ethics and regulatory oversight so that they're able to cover the whole continent and also expand from vaccines to medicines and other products. So this, in short, is a progress that we see in terms of advancing the medicines registration harmonization projects in the regional community. Now, we also have other streams of work. One of them is the African Union Model Law on Medical Products Regulation. This is a program that has come out of the baseline survey that we did way back in 2010 to determine the extent of the policy and legal frameworks of the African Union member states in terms of regulation of medicines. And it was actually realized that we have very weak legislation and legal framework that needed to be addressed by way of, trying to see what would be the workable mechanism for assisting countries to review their national law. So based on the situation analysis that was conducted way back in 2010, then we actually presented the case to the Pan-African Parliament in 2011, and the Pan-African Parliament instructed NEPAD agency to undertake the process of a model law that will be able to assist African Union member states in terms of either reviewing their law or enacting new laws. And through that process, we have done a lot of consultation with member states through the regional economic communities. And finally, by last year, in January, actually, 2016, the African Union Summit endorsed the African Union Model Law for Medical Product Regulation. And as we are speaking now, we already have 6 countries that have adopted the model law as a way of really addressing the gaps that were inherent in their own legal frameworks. And we are now at the process of facilitating domestication of the model law by various countries that have expressed interest. We've already received requests from the West African French-speaking countries so that the model law can assist in reviewing their legal framework, and especially they're focusing on establishing autonomous regulatory agencies that will facilitate effective regulation of medicines in their respective countries. Already, Ivory Coast has used the model law as a template for reviewing their national law. Equally, Burkina Faso has done the same, but we're targeting other countries and backed this one. So this is, an initiative that we consider very useful for the African Union member states because of the problems that were inherent in the system based on the historical heritage, that some countries could not even, review their law for one reason or the other. But now we've made that possible for countries to fast track the review process using the model law as a template. Another area that we've worked on is the establishment and designation of regional centers of regulatory excellence. As I did mention in my background, is that we have a problem of regulatory capacity in terms of human resources. but also institutional capacity to actually train, regulators in the areas of regulatory science. So we embarked on this initiative to address the challenge that the African countries were facing of not having enough regulatory workforce to be able to undertake the regulatory functions, but also to address the issue of ad hoc training programs that were being conducted by many partners that were coming on the continent to do training here, training there, one with training on GMP inspection, one with training on product registration, one with training on clinical trial. You see, it was so ad hoc that really it was difficult to determine to what extent were the training programs adding value to increasing the regulatory capacity of the country. So we embarked on that consultation among the partners that were conducting regulatory training on the continent. We had a roundtable with all the partners in 2012 to agree on a most feasible and sustainable mechanism for providing training programs for regulators on the continent. And finally, the agreement was that we needed to create regional centers of regulatory excellence, which may be composed of institutions of various expertise, be it the academic institutions, the research organizations, and the regulators come together and have some standardized, training curricula that would assist countries to be able to undertake their regulatory functions in a more objective and more informed and more professional way. And so the process was initiated in 2014 through a very rigorous procedure for application, assessment, selection. We were able to designate 11 regional centers of regulatory excellence in different areas of expertise. And we are speaking now, the centers are covering areas such as pharmacovigilance. We have the University of Ghana, which is conducting such training. But also we have the Pharmaceutical Board of Kenya, which is also specialized in pharmacovigilance. In the area of core regulatory functions, we have St. Luke's Foundation, Tanzania, Kilimanjaro School of Pharmacy, but also University of Ibadan in Nigeria that do such training programs. In the area of quality assurance and quality control, we have the Northwest University of Potchefstroom in South Africa, and also the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control in Nigeria that are specialized in this area. And also in Zimbabwe, that is Control Authority of Zimbabwe, its laboratory is also part of the article on quality assurance and quality control. Much as on the other hand, Zimbabwe is also a regional center of regulatory excellence in product evaluation and registration and clinical trial oversight, together with the Ghana Food and Drugs Authority and University of Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. The three are also centers of excellence in clinical trial oversight. On inspection, we have Uganda National Drug Authority that is specialized in inspection, and currently they are the lead agency on GMP's good manufacturing practice inspection for the East African community. But also we have the Tanzania Food and Drugs Authority together with the School of Pharmacy in Muhimbili, University of Health Sciences that are partnered as Regional Center of Excellence in Medicines Evaluation and Registration. And they are already conducting training programs in the region, bringing in experts from various countries to undertake such training programs. So you will see that this is another initiative that really aims to increase regulatory workforce on the continent in a manner that is sustainable because we are using our own existing institutions and our own expertise, and in a manner that is streamlined, meaning that the curricula is streamlined and recognized by the national accreditation bodies. And so by doing this, we believe that in the end analysis, we shall see an increase in the number of regulatory experts on the continent to address the challenge. So having said that, basically these three areas, the harmonization of legislation through the regional economic communities, the African Union model, and regional centers of excellence form the core of the AMRH process, AMRH initiative, and that has actually built a foundation, a very solid foundation, for which now the African Union heads of state and government have actually agreed through the Executive Council in 2015 that AMRH should now serve as a foundation for establishing the African Medicines Agency. So the idea is that we'll move from having 55 countries that are working independently to a place where they will all be working through some regional platform, as I mentioned before, East, Central, West, North, Southern Africa, but also move to a point where we have the African Medicines Agency. And as we are speaking now, the decision was made in 2015, and the task team for establishing the African Medicines Agency was created since November 2014, and they have actually been able to develop a legal and institutional framework and business plan, which is now in the process of consultation. And all this work is actually being coordinated by a joint secretariat composed of the African Union Commission, World Health Organization, and NEPAD agencies. So this is what is happening, and this is the relationship between AMRH and the African Medicines Agency. So allow me to now take you through the African Medicines Agency, the business model and the conceptual framework, so you may know what exactly it is all about and where we are in terms of advancing the process for its establishment. I think it is a fact, and it has been proven that there's no single country, be it rich or poor, that has enough resources and capability to efficiently and effectively regulate the whole supply chain alone in this globalized world. And that if you actually look at what's happening, for example, in US and Europe, you will agree with me that it is a time when countries need to work together through a framework that would really ensure that each niche role should be harnessed by working through some mechanism, either regional or continental platform, that would ensure that collectively they're able to utilize the resources in a more effective and efficient way. And so this is basically the basis for which AMA is being established, because by doing that, then it will have a competitive advantage. Now, the issue at stake is to determine as to who is going to do what, because we have the national regulatory agencies that have the mandate to regulate their markets. We also have the regional platforms that have a role to play in terms of coordinating the work of the national agencies. And now we are moving continental. And so it's very, very important to get to a point where it is clear as to what are the roles and responsibilities and what are the areas of demarcation between the work that's done at national, regional, and continental level. And so the African Medicines Agency basically is going to be established as a specialized agency of the African Union with a view to serve as a catalyst for stronger regulatory oversight to first curtail the medical products that are substandard, falsified, and counterfeit. You remember what I mentioned to you before, that this is the critical public health threat that Africa is facing, substandard and falsified medicines circulating in our market. But also, as I mentioned before, we also need to enable competitiveness of locally produced medicines so that they're able to not only increase access to our patients on the continent, but also create jobs, also advance the socio-economic development agenda. And so AMA is coming in handy to address those two critical issues that we have on our table. And what AMA will do will first galvanize technical support, galvanize expertise in the various countries and regions, and resources at a scale that cannot be matched at national or regional level. And this would definitely aim to address the long-term goal of contributing and increasing availability of affordable, quality, safe, and efficacious medical products on the continent. The vision for AMA is to be the leader in creating an enabling regulatory environment for medical products in Africa. AMA's mission is to protect public health and promote pharmaceutical sector development in Africa by ensuring that medical products in use meet internationally recognized standards of quality, safety, and efficacy. There are three main objectives for which AMA is being established. One is to ensure the coordination and strengthening of continental initiatives to harmonize medical products regulation, basically taking off from the AMRH program, because AMRH is just a program actually funded by donors, but the idea is to have AMA as an institution that will sustain all these efforts through resources that will be galvanized from the member states themselves. Another objective is to provide guidance and technical support to and complement and enhance the efforts of the regional economic communities, regional health organizations, and the member states, but also to contribute to improving access to medical products and health technologies. And we have almost 13 functions, I would say, for the African Medicines Agency, but basically the AMA will take on all the work that has been undertaken by the African Medicine Regulatory Harmonization Initiative, from the domestication of the model law to the adoption of the, and harmonization of medical products, regulatory policies and standards and scientific guidelines, to coordination and providing guidance and technical assistance, and especially when it comes to the regulation of clinical trials on medical products and health technologies, but also for such cases where you have emergencies, public health emergencies happening in the continent. AMA will be the first entry point to address such problems when it comes to ensuring access to medical products for emergency use It will be able to mobilize regulatory expertise across the continent and beyond to provide scientific opinion in consultation with the states in the event of public health emergency on the continent with a cross-border or regional implication where no medical products are to be deployed for investigation and clinical trials. And of course, we also continue with the work that has been started on the regional standard of regulatory. So in summary, this is what AMA will do in advancing the regulatory harmonization agenda, regulatory system strengthening, and regulatory capacity initiatives on the continent. You may recall that I did mention that we need to know who does what, when it comes to when AMA becomes functional. And so we have actually agreed on a conceptual framework for medicines regulation where we are saying our goal is to contribute to access to medical products and technologies, but we need to determine as to who can do what and at what level. So what is needed as input to this process is first human resources, and we are addressing that already. The financial resources, that is an aspect that we need to also continue discussing, especially after AMA takes off, to see how the activities can be sustained. The political support is key, political infrastructure, and legal support, as I mentioned before. These are the necessary inputs that we need to ensure that the regulation of medicines is done effectively at national, regional, and continental level. But when it comes to what activities can be done at what level, then we have those activities that cannot be taken away from the member states at the national level. These are the reviews and approvals of products, clinical trials, testing and inspection, input and export control, pharmacovigilance, and medicines. But of course, given the fact that not all the countries may have the capacity to do everything, then you have a situation where you're saying some activities can be done through the regional structure. For example, the investment that it takes to establish quality control laboratories is very big, it's enormous. And so we may want to get to a point where, the regional centers of regulatory excellence can serve as platforms for which those countries that may not have the necessary resources to invest in establishing quality control laboratories may use such, centers as a way of doing testing of samples, getting results and making their admission decision. We see that this is already happening. For example, Zimbabwe has served as a leader of excellence in quality assurance and quality control, and has helped a number of countries in the SADC region to advance their capacity in this area. When it comes to review of doses, again, it's going to be a continuation basically of what's happening in the regions. We join review, and then decisions are made at the national level. Review of multi-country clinical trials, GXP inspections. Here, GXP means good manufacturing practice, good laboratory practice, all those, best practices in inspection can be done through a collaborative process. But also, we envisage that even registration of medicines at some point can be done through a centralized process, as it is being done now in Europe through the European. So the anticipation is that after all this work is done, either nationally or regionally, then we would see, increased, numbers of products being approved within a shorter period of time, and we would also see, increased number of samples being tested, but also the issue of reporting of adverse drug reaction, safety surveillance, and product reviews and inspections. We anticipate these all will be improved, and ultimately the outcome is to see that time for approval has been reduced, the incidence of substandard and falsified medicines is reduced. The number of certified supplier consultation medicines is increased so that we can reduce the prices of medical products that are sold on the market. Compliance rates and GXP standards will be increased, then will, of course, mean that we'll see more increased quality products being produced locally. And also, the number of reported adverse drug reactions per 100,000 population will also increase, and there will provide guarantee as to the safety of products that are circulating on the market and that are being reported through the international platform of Salaman. So this, in summary, is the conceptual framework for which AMA will be operating to ensure that there's clear demarcation of roles and responsibilities. But of course, there's also an aspect of complementing, the efforts done at national, regional. So my next slide is on key actors. The key actors in the elaboration and implementation of the legal and institutional framework for African medicine agencies are the National Medicines Regulatory Authorities, regional economic communities, regionalization, national ethics committees, the African Union Commission, Pan-African Parliament is also a key actor. But of course, I should emphasize here is that the civil society organizations in health, nominated by the African Union recognized regional PSO forum, are also key actors in the AMA process. And so I see this as an opportunity for patients' engagement, and I think this is where we need to see how the International Alliance of Patients Organization works collaboratively with NEPAD agency and other partners in advancing this regulatory harmonization agenda, but of course also subsequently the establishment of the African Medicine Agency. In terms of timelines for establishment of the African Medicines Agency, I did mention to you before in the previous slide on how the process was started in 2014, by the ministers of health, African ministers of health in Angola, where they agreed that we needed to establish a task force to elaborate the process. So since 2014, as I mentioned in my previous slide, to date, we have seen a series of meetings of the task force for African Medicines Agency, but also stakeholders consultation, that were meant to the legal and institutional framework for AMA, with a view to provide guidance and validation of the documents before they can be considered by the AU policy organs. So as we're speaking, as from March this year, the report of the AMA task team was tabled before the African Ministers of Health meeting, which was held in March this year, and made a decision that the consultation process should proceed, and therefore the plan is to have the third consultation for the African Medicines Agency to discuss the legal framework, institutional framework, and business plan. In quarter 3, the plan is to have a meeting in July from 12 to 14 July in Tunisia to elaborate further and discuss the inputs from stakeholders before it can be tabled before Ministers of Health meeting for consideration in Quarter 4, 2017, and thereafter it will be considered by the Specialized Technical Committee of Legal and Justice Affairs, hopefully before end of 2017, but if it doesn't work, then it goes to 2018. And the anticipation is that after the consideration of the documents by the Legal and Justice Affairs ministers, then these documents will be taken to the Assembly of Heads of State and Government in July 2018 for endorsement and launch of the African Medicine. So this basically is about milestones and next steps for establishing the African Medicine. I know it's taken a lot of time to take you through this, and I believe you will have a lot of questions, but because I'm not able to participate physically, I'll be more than willing to address any issues that you may have through the International Alliance of Precious Organizations, so that I can respond and clarify anything. With that, thank you all for your attention. Thank the IAO, IAPO, and WAPO for inviting me to this, and all of you for your attention and listening. And I'd like to end by thanking you all and saying that we have a role, all of us, to contribute to the development of this continent. And if we all do our part, we're able to contribute to the future that we want for Africa through implementation of Agenda 2063, which is our policy framework and guidance for advancement of development